Hi, my name is Amy Volkins, and I am a water engineer with Brendel Group. And I am recording this video to introduce you to a regional water existing conditions report that we prepared for Larimer County. If you're interested to access and read the full report after seeing this video, please go to this website on the county's website in the planning department to access the full report. The county is not a water provider, but works with water providers to make decisions. The county's most recent strategic plan, which covers the period from 2019 to 2023, does lay out two water-related objectives. They include improving long-term planning for water supply in unincorporated areas and promoting water sharing strategies to preserve agriculture and sustain water supplies. To get started on these objectives, the county engaged Brendel Group in 2021 and 2022 to put together a regional water existing conditions report focusing specifically around water supply and agricultural land in the county. One of the major outcomes contained within the report are water and land use metrics that assess water supply and agricultural land and growth in the county. What you're seeing on this slide are some growth and development metrics that we've assembled. I want to draw your attention to a few facts. The first being that the county is expected as a whole to see pretty significant population growth as we have been through 2040. However, of the projected growth, only a little bit of it, about 4% of the expected growth, will be happening in unincorporated Larimer County. The rest of the growth is expected to be absorbed by municipalities. There's also a large amount of land in the county that is expected to be developed that is proximate to growth areas in the county and incorporated areas. This slide is summarizing some key water-related metrics that are presented in the report, and let's take them one by one. First of all, we found that of the water that's used in Larimer County, almost half of it originates from the Colorado River, and a little bit more than half is coming from surface water and groundwater within the county. Why is this important? It's important for a couple of reasons. You want to have a diverse water supply mix for reliability within the county. However, at the same time, the water that's coming into our county from the Colorado River, those water rights are junior to the Colorado Compact. And so what does that mean if there's a call on the Colorado Compact? That could be a risk to the water supplies that are coming into the county. The next thing we looked at was around water diversions and how they have been trending historically and how they're projected to trend into the future. What these statistics are showing you is that over the period from 1980 to 2020, measured diversions in the county have more than doubled. When we look at water rights that are yet to be developed, there is also the potential for water diversions to increase significantly in the future as well. And so demands on our water supplies are growing, have been, and will continue to grow at a time when drought and climate change might be impacting water availability within the county. The next thing we looked at is agricultural land within the county. And what we found, and has been widely reported before, is that there has been a significant decline in irrigated agricultural land over the period that we looked at from 1987 to 2020. So that conversion of agricultural land to developed land is a long-standing trend that we've been experiencing in our county. And we have not been able to overcome the loss of agricultural land with the water sharing strategies that various entities have been trying to promote. And so with preservation of agricultural land as a primary objective of the county, this is something that we need to look at and be concerned with. One bright spot in the agricultural sector is that irrigation technology is getting more efficient. We have seen an increase from 8% to 38% in terms of farmland that's irrigated by a more efficient sprinkler technology compared to the older flood irrigation technique. You might be surprised to learn that there are more than 100 public water systems that serve drinking water to the residents and businesses of Larimer County. That's quite a few. They serve more than 385,000 people. I will note that this population estimate includes water service outside of Larimer County because water service boundaries and municipal and county boundaries do not always align. We found that more than 10,000 homes in Larimer County are reliant on their own groundwater wells for their water supplies as compared to receiving their water from a centralized water service provider. There are almost 50 irrigation, ditch, and reservoir companies that operate in the county that deliver raw water. That raw water can be used for irrigating agricultural farmland. It can be used in industrial applications, and that is increasingly becoming a water source for water service providers who then take that raw water and treat it to drinking water standards to provide clean and reliable drinking water to Larimer County. What we found is that water service providers are projecting growth in their water demands between now and when they expect their water service area to be fully built out. And so depending on the water service provider and how developed their water service area is, they are reporting anywhere from 25 to 90% expected growth in water demands between now and when their service area is fully built out. The second key outcome that's contained in the existing conditions report is an analysis and identification of key water-related risks and vulnerabilities. And what you see here on this slide are risks and vulnerabilities related to water in the county as a whole. So I mentioned already the potential for reduced water availability from droughts, climate change, wildfires, and other natural hazards at a time when we expect water demands to be growing in the county. I also mentioned that the water that's coming into our county that originates from the Colorado River is at risk if there is a call on the Colorado River. As much as we know about the water picture in Larimer County, there are still a number of information gaps that prevent us from having a complete picture of water availability and demands in the county. We expect additional water rights to be developed and additional diversions to come online to support growth going into the future. One water topic that's been getting a lot of press lately is the idea of water reuse. And so that's the idea that water can be treated and used again and again. Because of the nature of where Larimer County's water supplies come from, the water reuse potential we assess to be relatively low. The reason for that is that water that comes from the Colorado Big Thompson project is not able to be reused because return flows are reserved for downstream agricultural users. Native water supplies that originate from surface water and groundwater within the county can only be reused if action is taken in water court, and oftentimes comes with some requirement to replace that water through an augmentation plan. The only water that can be reused, is water that comes from Windy Gap or other Trans Mountain diversions, but again, not that originates from the Colorado Big Thompson project. This does not, however, prevent the county or municipalities from promoting and adopting gray water reuse if that is of interest. And as you might know, a small amount of reuse is used in the form of rainwater harvesting on residential homes. But in terms of county-wide impact, that amount of water reuse is relatively small. I mentioned that we're still seeing a conversion of agricultural land to developed areas. And then finally, you may yourself have seen in the news that water service providers are experiencing limitations in the here and now in terms of being able to serve growth into the future. There are some building limitations and tap moratoria that are in place and used as tools to ensure water supply reliability for existing customers and that affect the potential for growth into the future. Now moving kind of away from county-wide risks and more of the kind of risks and vulnerabilities that water service providers themselves may experience, the water providers in Larimer County are heavily reliant on water that comes from the Colorado Big Thompson project. There have been significant efforts by water service providers to diversify away from the single water supply source by acquiring native water supplies. And native in this case means water that originates within Larimer County in surface water or groundwater. Many of the water service providers within Larimer County report a need for more raw water storage, particularly on the east slope, even for Colorado Big Thompson project water and Windy Gap water. More and more, we're seeing that water service providers are working together to connect their systems so that they can share water during cases of emergency. That's wonderful. Water service providers are also banding together for infrastructure projects, such as creating joint water treatment plants. This is an excellent idea to cooperate in terms of getting the infrastructure that's needed to treat drinking water and have a good economy of scale by building one joint treatment plant instead of different treatment plants for each water service provider. But this also connects the water service providers in ways that may not be apparent. What happens if that joint water treatment plant goes offline? And what does that say about the ability of those water service providers to then provide drinking water to their customers? Almost every water service provider in Larimer County reports that they suffer from aging and insufficient infrastructure, which really points to the need to be investing in infrastructure upgrades and ongoing maintenance at a higher level than what providers have been able to do. And just like with water in the environment, we also have information and planning gaps that exist in terms of information that's publicly available from the water service providers. Each provider has their own set of water supplies and planning criteria and the way that they go about planning for their water delivery. And that varies from provider to provider. That information is not always made publicly available. The last part of the existing conditions report that I want to point out is an appendix that provides summaries of some of the largest water providers in the county. The ones that you see on this slide are ones that have a good amount of information about their system available on their website, or have at least one long-range plan that's publicly available in the form of a water master plan or a water efficiency plan. For each of the providers that you see listed on the left-hand side of the slide, we have information summarized that covers what you see on the right-hand side of the slide. So we have a water service map. We summarize which land use authorities are served by each water provider, where we know about large contractual use. This is another mechanism that connects water providers, is sometimes providers are connected through treatment agreements and other factors. We talk about current service population and water sales and how they compare to build out estimates. We describe the water supplies for each provider and how much they yield in an average year, as well as firm yield in a drought year. We note information about that water service provider's water treatment, storage, and distribution infrastructure, and any notable reliability and vulnerability information. And this is information that the provider self-reports. We did not make our own assessment about system reliability and vulnerability for the water service providers. We mentioned planned capital projects. We link to current billing rates and system development fees, and we note any connections to the ag sector. Many water service providers, if they have water rights that are not fully used in a given year, rent excess water to the agricultural sector. For more information, you can find the full report, as I mentioned earlier, on the planning department's website at the county's website. And our project manager for this project was Leslie Ellis. You can find her contact information here. If you'd like to provide your input to the county about the work that it's doing on regional water planning, you have two opportunities to do so. The first is an upcoming open house on regional water planning issues. It will be held on May 11th from 3:30 to 5:30 at the county's building in Fort Collins at 200 West Oak Street. The open house is on the first floor in the Carter and Boyd Lake conference rooms. You are welcome to come and meet the county's project management team and the consultant team to learn more and provide your input. If you're not able or interested to participate in the open house, you can also provide your input using this QR code to access an online questionnaire and provide your input that way. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you learned something new. Goodbye.